Artificial Sun, Chapter 16. The fire burnt bright, and its glow reflected on the fledglings' faces. It had been a while since they united together around a fire. Azura refused to join, and Bayard didn't seem to be in the mood for ale or company, which left Althea, Flynn, Neolani, Ambrose, and Ameera around the inviting fire, with tankards full of ale. The gorillas were lounging by their feet, absorbing the warmth of the fire that contrasted the northern air. Even though Althea knew that the haven they were in was as artificial as Edagene, she couldn't help but feel content, even if just for a night. It wasn't long before Flynn suggested a drinking game, having clearly spent an ample amount of time with the drunken group of battlemen he called friends.
It's called 2 lies and a truth,
he explained as he leaned over with the jug of ale and filled everyone's tankards one by one.
You tell 2 lies about yourself and 1 truth. If we can guess the truth, you take a drink. If not, the person who guesses wrong takes a drink.
You're a telepathist. How is this fair?
Neolani asked with a playful glare. Flynn only shrugged in response as he settled back down beside Althea.
You forget. I can't read your minds anymore, remember?
He raised his tankard a bit before he said,
I'll start.
The fire sparked and roared as Flynn thought. The flames danced in his eyes, beautifying them. Eventually, he said,
I killed a bear with my own 2 hands. I have only ever cared for 1 girl. And
he waved his arm around a bit as he thought,
I wish I was Bayard.
Althea didn't miss Flynn's gaze on hers, and he didn't miss the blush that rushed to her cheeks. He wished he knew what was going through her head at that moment. Were her thoughts as impure as his?
The first one was an obvious lie.
Ambrose leaned forward in thought. Flynn averted his gaze to Ambrose, but kept his body angled toward Althea. Ambrose continued.
I don't think you could care about anyone but yourself. So I'm guessing the truth is that you wish you were Bayard.
Flynn sighed dramatically. He raised the tankard as if to drink, and Ambrose smirked at his supposed victory. Just as the tankard was about to reach Flynn's lips, he lowered it and said,
Drink.
Ambrose hid his shock with a laugh and downed the contents of his tankard. Flynn refilled the tankard halfway and laughed in victory.
So, what was the truth?
Neolani asked. Her curiosity piqued. Flynn shrugged.
I never killed a bear.
Even though he spoke to Neolani, his gaze shifted to Althea for a measly few seconds. Their relationship, though undefined, was still a secret.
You've cared for someone?
Ameera asked in disbelief. The others had similarly surprised expressions, save for Althea, who was avoiding his eyes.
Oh, come on, you guys. I'm full of love and care,
he said with a chuckle. He was aware of his reputation at Edagene. He was well known for his silver tongue and lack of commitment. He was a man with a trail of broken hearts. Perhaps he never lent out his heart to anyone else, because it was reserved for a certain healer girl.
Why do you all look like you don't believe me?
His jaw slackened. Nobody responded, so he rolled his eyes with a resigned sigh. Flynn remembered the day he first had a proper conversation with Althea. They were in training at the age of 13. It was their first week on the battlefield, all 30 of them. They were fighting zombies that day, rendering him powerless. How was he to read the minds of creatures who had none? He was clumsy with his sword, and not nearly as quiet as he needed to be. It happened so fast. Before he knew it, a zombie had grabbed his arm, and death felt almost certain. But a certain gold-plated dagger saved him that day. The mousy girl who had trouble with her powers was hiding behind a tree after she'd thrown her dagger. She beckoned him over, and he obliged. They hid from the zombies together and spoke for hours in hushed whispers. They hadn't realized when training had ended, nor did they worry about the fact that her dagger was lost to her. But as time went on, the mousy girl from training became distant and self-consumed, forgetting those around her, including him.
I suppose I should go next.
Ameera shifted the attention onto herself, which Flynn was grateful for. He didn't enjoy being the center of attention just then. He felt as if he was being held under a microscope and being dissected. Perhaps that was how people felt when he read their minds. Ameera said,
I have a secret love for ale. I can't sleep at night without getting nightmares. And I prefer dawn over dusk.
She seemed proud of herself.
The answer is quite easy, I'd say.
The truth is that you have a secret love for ale.
Neolani said with confidence. Ameera laughed heartily.
That was pathetic, Neolani. Drink.
She said.
The truth is that I prefer dawn. It brings the promise of a new day. It's quite obvious, if you ask me.
Her smile was wide, but it faltered as Luthor walked by. Luthor hadn't said a word to her since the hunt, and it left her conflicted. The attention he had fixed on her that day was suddenly gone. Her gaze never left him, but nobody seemed to notice. Conversation carried on, but the words were lost on her, especially when he turned, looked right at her, and quickly looked away again. It was subtle, but it set her chest alight. Ameera didn't like the feeling, so she decided to pay attention to the group once again. She ignored the urge to look at him again as he walked by and towards the training grounds in the distance. He obviously couldn't sleep.
All right, I'll go next.
Althea said after Neolani drank.
I've been communicating with the gorillas through sign. I hate the taste of deer, and...
She paused a bit, sparing Flynn a single look.
I think we're safe with the battlemen.
Flynn opened his mouth to speak, but as he did, Uken and another battleman passed by. They paused by the fledgling's fire.
Ah, Golden Boy!
Uken addressed Flynn, barely acknowledging anyone else.
Care for a game of knife throwing?
I'm in the middle of something, Uken.
Flynn gestured to the other fledglings. The battlemen noticed them for the first time.
A drinking game.
Flynn explained.
I suppose we have time for one round.
Uken's friend, the guard known as Axyl, shrugged his shoulders and made himself comfortable, nearly bumping Leona in the process.
Well, what are we playing?
Uken asked as he sat down on the other side of Althea. Flynn filled empty tankards of ale and handed it to them.
It's called Two Lies and a Truth.
Ambrose awkwardly said before he faced Neolani.
I believe it was your go?
Nobody explained the game to the battlemen, and nobody was stupid enough to answer Althea's confessions.
Alright.
Neolani smiled awkwardly as she eyed Uken, obviously intimidated.
I'm very good at riding horses. I have a fear of rats, and I've never been with anyone before. Like that.
Well, that last one must be a lie. You're far too beautiful for any man to deny.
Uken stated with confidence. Ambrose fidgeted.
Thank you.
Neolani said, tucking some hair behind her ears.
But the last one is the truth.
You're joking.
It was a question, but it sounded like a statement when Flynn said it. Althea rolled her eyes at their childishness.
I still don't believe it.
Axyl shrugged, taking a large swig of his drink. Neolani was clearly uncomfortable, evident in the way she pursed her lips. Why did she think to tell that truth when there were so many others?
Excuse me.
She stood up and was gone before anyone could say anything. There was a looming silence before Althea spoke.
Well done, you two.
She scolded as Flynn and Uken exchanged glances like naughty children. Before Althea could say anything else, Ambrose stood up and walked after Neolani. She was already in her tent by the time he arrived. At first she didn't hear him, but he stubbed his toe and let out a curse word, drawing Neolani's attention. She turned to him and smiled, but it wasn't real. He could tell.
You didn't have to.
She said, absent-mindedly, pulling her coat tighter. Ambrose didn't say anything, but took a step forward. He wasn't sure why he came, what he planned to say. He just knew he had to go after her.
Are you alright?
He eventually asked.
I'm sorry about Flynn and the rest.
It's okay. I'm okay.
She said, her eyes not meeting his, evidence of her lingering embarrassment.
You've never been with anyone at Itogen?
His voice was soft, curious. If he wasn't as close as he was, Neolani wouldn't have heard him. She shook her head. He took another step closer, and she took one back. What was he doing? He was in love with Azura. He said he was. His voice was low, as he said,
Any boy who doesn't see how wonderful you are is stupid.
You're one of those boys.
She chuckled weakly. Ambrose didn't deny it. He stepped forward and gently grazed her cheek with his hand as he looked down at her.
I was.
His fingers, rough and large, trailed to the nape of her neck, where her hair began.
But not anymore.
What about Azura?
She barely breathed out. The name meant nothing to him, not while the moon was staring at him.
I'm not in her tent.
He leaned forward slightly. His gaze flicked to her lips, then back to her eyes.
If you don't feel the same, that's fine. I'm well versed in unrequited love.
Ambrose.
But if by some miracle you do, may I kiss you?
Neolani's breath hitched, and her eyes widened slightly. She couldn't find the words, so she nodded. His lips were rough, and hers were soft, though they fitted perfectly, like two sides of a puzzle. Neolani could smell the scent of burnt wood that lingered in Ambrose's hair, and she could feel the roughness of his facial hair on her skin. Her arms wrapped around his neck, while his hands traveled to hold her waist. His kiss was gentle, a testament of the care he reserved only for her. Flynn had taken Uken up on his offer after all. They were playing a friendly game of knife throwing, and Uken proved to be the best at it, while Axyl was the best at giving unsolicited advice on knife throwing techniques and downing ale. Althea and Ameera watched instead of participating, and at some point, Libra joined them. Bayard eventually emerged from his tent, but only to take a walk to clear his mind. He hadn't been sleeping well, and late-night walks became a part of his routine. Bayard was most at peace when under the stars. Althea, his preferred company, hardly seemed to notice him anymore, so he spent most of his time alone. It didn't take him long to see the group throwing knives, and he stared, expressionlessly. He turned, ready to retreat into his tent, but a voice caught him off guard.
Wish you were with them?
It was Azura. She was sitting at one of the tables, with a tankard of ale in her hands, already drunk. Her words were slurred, and her demeanor was sloppy. Bayard didn't answer, so she lazily swung her hand.
Sit. Join me.
Bayard complied. He didn't feel comfortable leaving her alone while she was drunk, especially knowing how the battlemen were.
You should head to bed. You're drunk,
Bayard said as he sat opposite Azura.
Oh, spare me.
She slurred, raising her drink to her lips.
You don't have to pretend to worry about me.
Before Bayard could say anything, a group of women walked by, giggling as they looked at Bayard upon passing.
They're taken by you.
Azura continued.
The women here. You'd think they'd swoon over Flynn, but perhaps they prefer dark and brooding loners.
Bayard spared the girls a single glance before he looked at Azura again.
I think you might be mistaken.
I know women, Bayard.
Azura said. She swished the contents of her ale before taking another large sip.
You could warm your bed tonight. Any one of them would jump at the opportunity.
She lowered her ale with a challenging look on her face.
Some other time,
said Bayard, but they both knew he was lying.
Why not tonight?
Azura pressed.
Or is it the same reason you turned me away?
And what reason is that?
Bayard was curious to know, and Azura was eager to tell him. The name had left her mouth sooner than she had planned, but she said it nonetheless.
Althea.
Bayard's curious expression dropped.
I think it's time for bed.
I know the kind of guy you are,
Azura said as she leaned her head onto the palm of her hand.
You aren't very subtle. But Althea is incredibly short-sighted. I thought, after we left Edagene, that maybe she felt the same. Hells, I was even hoping you two might just get together so you could stop being this life-sucking, miserable cloud. But then along came Flynn.
And there it was. A crack. Bayard's gaze shifted to the floor. Azura had struck a nerve, and thriving on it, she continued.
Just look at them.
Despite his better judgment, Bayard turned to where Flynn was throwing knives against a tree. He managed to hit his target, and the look he exchanged with Althea was enough to tighten Bayard's chest. Bayard couldn't look much longer, so he turned back to Azura, who continued to taunt him.
She cares for Flynn. A lot. Poor souls think they're good at hiding it. But young love always shines through.
What's your point?
Bayard interrupted her. The feeling in his chest was nothing short of despair, and it grew with every word Azura spoke. He had to silence the drunken spitfire.
My point...
Azura raised her ale slightly before bringing it to her lips. Before she drank, she said,
Well, I don't have one.
Just as Bayard was about to speak, she perked up, slamming her almost empty tankard down onto the table.
Oh wait, my point is this. She makes you weak, so you have to let her go.
I've heard enough.
Bayard stood up. He wasn't going to leave her there, but he couldn't hear her poisonous words any longer. He would stand his vigil from a distance, intending to keep watch over her until she was safe in her tent. He started walking a few paces.
If you're not careful,
she called after him.
You will bleed for a girl who wouldn't dress the wound.
Shouts awoke Althea the following day. She haphazardly threw on a tunic and trousers before leaving her tent. She had forgotten her fur coat, so the cold hit her like a shock, but she didn't care. She followed the noise and fought through the crowd to end up at the foot of Luthor's throne. In front of the throne, Axyl held a man in bondage. Flynn, Bayard, and Ameera were already there, at the very front of the crowd. Even though the man was brawny, Axyl was much bigger. The clothes the smaller man wore were made from heavy furs and animal skins, and were deep charcoal in color. These were not battlemen colors, which were brown, gray, and white.
What's going on?
Althea asked above the shouts of the crowd around them. Luthor was sitting on his throne, his eyes revealing the contemplation happening in his mind. Althea thought he didn't hear her, so she wanted to speak again, but he held his hand out to silence her. She shut her mouth in shock, but was angry at how easily he shrugged her off.
Scout.
Axyl chose to answer her, and she faced him in confusion.
From one of the Snow clans. I found him lurking around our camp.
Althea furrowed her brows. Snow clans were mountain dwellers. What was a scout doing here? She frowned at the dark-haired scout.
You're not a very good scout, are you?
She asked. The scout gave no response, but Uken covered his mouth with his sleeve to block out his snicker. The crowd was in an uproar, and various shouts were heard all around them.
Kill him!
Why are they scouting us?
What do the Snow clans
Don't
want
they
with
belong
us?
in the mountains?
Enough! Luthor stood up. His voice, and with it, the power it held, silenced the multitude. He stepped down from his throne and descended the steps. The silence was tense as Luthor walked towards the scout, examining him, as he did with the fledglings when they arrived. "What do you want?" Luthor eventually asked. The scout only glared back at Luthor, with hardness in his eyes. There was a short silence, which Flynn broke by saying,
Mountain lions, titans, are coming out of hiding and entering their villages, killing them. They need a new place to live.
Luthor's eyes flicked to Flynn, and while he didn't like the fledglings, he'd heard rumors that Flynn could read minds. He nodded subtly, indicating that he believed him.
But the battlemen have the low ground. The Snow clans have high. That's how it's always been.
Axyl said, and others murmured in agreement. Luthor, however, remained expressionless.
They're scouting to see how many we are before they attack.
Flynn's words caused ruckus among the battlemen once again, each one's voice louder than the one before.
Silence!
Luthor's voice was just above a shout, and once again everyone fell silent. He looked at the scout and sneered, his arrogance returning.
You think your one clan can go up against my army?
He asked, while the snow clans were branched out across many leaders. The battlemen all looked to one chieftain. The scout smirked, his dark hair shielding his eyes.
Not one,
was all he said, and even though Luthor felt a twinge of fear in his chest, he didn't show it on his face.
We will never surrender these grounds to the likes of you.
Luthor's voice was softer now, and somehow scarier. Luthor looked at his people, and he didn't just see subjects. He saw those he swore to protect. He saw warriors who fought for him without question. He saw children hiding behind their mother's legs. He saw Ameera. She looked confused and afraid, and despite his better judgment, he wanted to protect her. He tried forgetting her, but she plagued his thoughts from morning until evening. The possibility of her dying at the hands of the Snow Clans caused inexplicable anger to well up in his chest. He turned and pulled his axe out, ready to slay the scout. As Luthor raised his axe, the crowd cheered for him to chop off the scout's head. The cheering got louder, but one voice sprung out and caused him to pause with his axe in the air.
Wait!
Ameera rushed forward, her voice shaky. It wasn't her statement that silenced the crowd, but rather the fact that Luthor paused and looked at her. Usually, if someone were to question him so openly, he'd have their head as well. Yet, he was giving this foreign woman his full attention.
Wait,
Luthor asked mockingly, his voice hard despite himself.
Wait for what, exactly?
If you kill him, you're no better than them!
Ameera was panic-stricken and didn't see the warning look Althea was giving her.
If we don't kill him, the Snow Clans attack.
One of the finest battleman warriors, Zukon, said as he stepped forward.
They will attack either way,
she said, facing him.
What if there's a way we can all unite and share the lands?
The crowd laughed at her ludicrous suggestion.
The battlemen will never unite with the Snow Clans.
Luthor's cold voice silenced everyone again. The axe was still in the air, but Ameera could see the hesitation on his face.
That's the way it has been for generations.
The mountain lions haven't come out for years, chieftain.
Althea spoke up to defend Ameera as she stepped beside her.
If they're out of hiding, you might be facing a greater threat soon.
They have the soft hearts of women.
Someone stepped forward and spat. The substance landed close to Ameera and Althea's feet.
Perhaps we should make away with them as well. Watch yourself.
Uken took a warning step forward, and the tension that followed was palpable. The divide caused by the fledglings was evident. Luthor felt a twinge of anger in his chest at the audacity of the suggestion and suggester alike.
What good would killing him do? We can keep him as a prisoner and gather information. Death does not need to be the only option.
Ameera ignored the man, and pleaded with Luthor using her eyes. He hated how weak her mere glance made him feel.
She won't talk.
Zukon growled.
He's as good as dead.
He won't talk, but we have Flynn.
Althea bit. Zukon was about to say something else when the crowd parted for 3 large figures. Bow, Longclaw, and Leona calmly made their way to Althea's side, unaware of the situation they walked into. Her lips twitched, fighting a smile, when she saw the fear on Zukon's face.
Please, Luthor.
Ameera's doe-eyed gaze rested on Luthor. For just a second, he succumbed to the feeling. He slowly lowered his axe and leaned closer to the scout.
Consider yourself lucky.
His voice was above a whisper before he turned to the crowd. He didn't say anything, but instead turned to walk off. The battleman warrior who had previously mentioned killing the women took a few steps so that he was close to Luthor.
Is this your command, chieftain?
He asked. Luthor turned to face him, looking him up and down. He let out a small scoff and turned again. The warrior continued.
You're listening to the advice of a woman? Are you a fool? If your father were to see you now, he'd...
Luthor's axe pierced the battleman's chest and tore right through his abdomen before he could finish his sentence. The warrior twitched and gurgled as blood pooled out of his mouth, but within a few seconds, he was lifeless. Luthor loosely adjusted his grip on the handle of the bloodied axe before he faced the rest of his people.
Does anyone else object to my decision?
His voice was harsh. When nobody dared to speak, Luthor walked away. Zukon scowled. He looked at the dead warrior first, then at Althea. His voice was dangerous when he said,
Your people will be the death of mine.
Flynn partly removed his sword so that the top of the blade was peeking out, as he said,
I can make that happen.
He threatened, but Zukon only scoffed and walked away. Artificial Sun, Chapter 16.